I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Grand Bay-Westfield on Monday, May 9th, 2022 to order at 7 o'clock p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Grand Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolstook land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolstook, along which live Woolstook Way, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. Item 4, record of attendance. Let the record reflect we have a full attendance here around the council table this evening. Item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of May 9th, 2022 as presented with the addition of 11E, appointment of treasurer. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Day.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any? There being none, we'll move on to item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. 7A, Funding Regional Service Commission. 9, quarterly report. We have with us Acting Sergeant Julie Rogers-Marsh. Julie, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us here this evening.
Hi everybody. It's been a while since I've been here. So I'm just gonna go through the report, some of the highlights that I noticed, and then if you have any questions, let me know. We'll kind of go through it. Everybody's had a chance to take a look at it. Okay. So basically, quarter 4 is January 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2022. So it's the 3-month period for quarter 4. We're roughly around the same calls for service based on where we were last year. So 448 for 2021. For this quarter, this year, it's 443. So we're averaging around the same call volume for this time last year. So the top 10 occurrences, mainly it's been speeding violations. Other non-moving would be anything other than speeding. So if it's insurance, registration, inappropriate passing, things like that would fall sort of under that category. Mental health calls were at 28. Traffic collisions 25, and those are divided up between reportable, non-reportable, so damage to property or injuries. And then page 5 is basically summarizes the clearance of ongoing investigations. What I've noticed of late compared to previous months is our mental health act calls they've increased compared to where we were last year at 13. We're 28 for this quarter. So I have a feeling I know why. We have one particular individual that we've been dealing with consistently. So that's why I figure, I don't think it's an overall increase as far as lots of people. I think it's 1 or 2 that we've recently got more calls for. And then for traffic enforcement, we've got speeding, we're up to 60 for this quarter. So that would be POPAs. Driving while disqualified or suspended, we're at 8. So we're right kind of on track to where we were last year. And then check stops, we're at 6. So we're actually increased from last year. And then collisions, for the quarter we had 5 collisions with injuries, 22 that were property damaged. The majority, if you look at that, the majority of the collisions are happening within Grand Bay-Westfield, and the rest are on the outskirts. So traffic enforcement for tickets. So keep in mind that this is for Grand Bay-Westfield only. 61, we have 53 warnings, and then the defect would be compliance. And so if we see somebody that's, maybe has to get their lights fixed or their brakes or or maybe their tint removed, those would be compliances, they'd have to get it fixed and come back, and they wouldn't get a ticket unless they didn't come back and get those things fixed. And school patrols, so I don't necessarily feel like these reflect the work that's being done. Obviously in January, because we had the holidays and then there was no school, obviously school patrols weren't happening then, but more, I feel like there's more. Usually patrols are being done in the AM and then in the afternoon, just as school's letting out, so that's something that we're doing Monday to Friday. The only time it's not being done is if obviously we're tied up on calls, but for the most part, I don't feel like, maybe we need to document that a little bit better on our end. And then if I look at the proactive initiative stuff, the, obviously the weather has a huge impact sort of on where we were and where we're going. So obviously this summer we'll be doing a lot more, traffic enforcement and enhanced road safety more in the summertime, and that can include off-road vehicles as well. And that was just some of the things that I highlighted that I noticed. Any questions?
Thank you, Julie. I have a question. I know that you indicated that the traffic infractions were specific to Grand Bay-Westfield.
Yes.
The incident and the clearance rates, are those for the entire region, or is that also just Grand Bay-Westfield?
So
I know the
this,
report is for J Division, so.
I believe, I'd have to double check because I think the most part it's Grand Bay-Westfield only. I don't feel like we'd be reporting on anything else. Based on like the stats that we used to do, it was just for Grand Bay-Westfield. I'd have to double check just to make sure.
Thank you
And
for
can
the
let you know.
clarification. Just so we have a real picture of what.
Yes, absolutely. So are you looking for everything for the RSC or specifically for?
Well, I just wanted a clarification because the report's for J Division, so.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure what statistics we were actually hearing.
Okay. I know it was broken down in some of them. Yeah, so like for collisions, it was broken down between Grand Bay, Lower Broome, Musquash, Public Landing, Walford. So I would say the overall stats are probably for everywhere that we cover. So all of RSC 9 that we cover, but I'll double check that.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could give us an update on the detachment hours and how that's working out, and if it's still the same as it has been, or if there's any changes there.
No changes to that. So Megan comes from Hampton to do criminal record checks on Wednesdays from 9 to 3. Sometimes she, for whatever reason, is available. So we're looking at maybe vacation coming into the summer, but we'll definitely post it on the website and make sure that we post it on the door for the weeks that we know she's not going to be available. Obviously, if we're there in the detachment, we answer the door as much as we can. Sometimes we're not always there, so. But the hours have changed.
Is the online option available now for the criminal record and vulnerable sector checks?
I believe so. No, maybe not. No, I don't think so. I'm thinking of, you can report now online if you have a complaint.
Yeah, there's the online crime report.
Yeah, so I think that's it. I don't think they're quite there yet with the online for criminal record checks. I mean, eventually the commissioners are going to be doing that, and there's going to be spots all over the province that will take care of that. I don't think they're there yet for that.
Anybody have any questions?
I just have a couple of quick questions. I'm glad you mentioned the mental health one. That was one of my questions. The other one was crimes against persons. I just noticed that they are up a bit, double or triple for this year. I'm just wondering if there's any indication as to what those instances were on page 6.
Page 6.
So the assaults were double, pretty much.
Right.
Robberies, triple.
Yeah, so robbery, extortion, harassment, threats, that's
The
very
broad.
broad, right? So I'd have to go back and kind of look and see what those are. We'd have to go back and sort of look and see what the increase is related to. I mean, you're right, it's double, almost triple. for the, I would say most of them is either harassment or uttering threats.
Okay.
If there was a robbery or extortion, that's quite serious,
Right.
and that would be something we would let you know if there's something major like that, if there was a robbery or something like that. I'd have to check and see, based on the numbers, if we see a reason why there's been an increase. It could be people are here, people move back here, it could be an issue. I'd have to check.
And one other question,
Yes.
I know you've done a bike rodeo in the past, I'm just wondering if that's happening again this year, if you have any updates on that?
Yes, so we've emailed each other. Constable Galloway is going to take the lead for our side of the rodeo. And he's gonna be back in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna come up with some dates. We decided it'd be good to do it just before school ended, so sometime in June. And then we'll let you know what we need, where we're gonna do it, kind of those things, but it shouldn't take very long to plan it.
Okay.
And then it'll just be about kind of advertising and getting the word out of when it's happening. Is there any dates in mind that we're thinking? Like, do we wanna do, obviously, we're gonna do it like a Saturday or a
Yeah.
Sunday?
I was thinking like the Saturday before school finished, maybe.
Yeah.
Is the plan to have it at the RBCC again, or?
I would say that's probably the best place. So is that something that you guys can check to see if it's available for dates for June?
Well, why don't, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, do you wanna connect with the acting sergeant and determine that, so that we don't lose a good day?
Sure.
Councillor Day?
Yes, last year when we did it, it was freezing cold. And Stephanie went way above and beyond trying to get all the kids in and have stuff for them and everything. So I said I would make her a quilt so she could raffle it off. And other than the binding, I have it done.
Oh, wow.
So, do you wanna come and show them the quilt and that we can get some people excited in the community to wanna buy tickets?
Yes.
Wow, that's really nice.
Sorry, the camera's right here,
Oh, okay.
so that people at home can see it. Sorry, Julie.
No, that's okay. The quote looks a lot better than me, so it's all good.
Councillor Day, that's absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful.
I'm sure that that will be a very popular
Yes.
raffle item.
Thank you, Bev.
So I'll get the binding on it this week and stay tuned. I know Brock, who loves to communicate with everyone, will be able to send out how to get tickets.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Day.
Good question.
Councillor
How do
Bailey?
you deal with people who have license plates are all peeled off?
Yeah,
I know a lot of them around, and I just wonder how you police that.
so it's hard for us because you can actually see them when you get up close. Obviously, if it's an issue of them taking off on us and if they're afraid, it's sometimes hard to see. But it's a manufacturer issue. It's really like the province. I don't know, some of them are okay, some of them were peeling. We're kind of not, it's not something I think we really want to like enforce and give people tickets because it's not,
Because he had two in the car, he used to take one off the front and
put it in the
he
back,
put it in
and
the
now
car,
it's
so
just the
peeled.
one.
But I just think it's weird, like you're riding around with no plates on and have
Right.
to see it or do something wrong, you can't get a plate number down, like.
Right, so I mean, we're certainly aware that it's an issue, but I think it's like a provincial issue with them, with the manufacturing. It came up a couple years ago when they started to peel, and people would have to pay to get a replacement.
Why is that though?
It's,
If it peels off, there should be a warranty on it.
exactly.
Really? I mean,
So this is why we're reluctant to start handing out tickets for people when we know it's not their
like
fault.
Safety issue, somebody hits somebody, you can't get license plate number down, and then when you steal a kid or something, you can't see your plate number, that's a concern, right, so.
Provincial issue.
Yeah,
Right, but no,
thank you, Councillor Bailey. Do you have any other questions for the acting sergeant? There being none, thank you, Julie, appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, everyone. I'll wait to get your,
Thanks.
have a good evening.
Thanks, you too. So the motion on the table is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Bellman. So I have a second. Councillor Day, thank you. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A, regular council meetings of April 25th, regular council minutes, I should say, of April 25th, 2022. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of April 25th, 2022. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. We have a second. Thank you, Councillor Bellman. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business.
Your worship,
Yes, Councillor Bellman.
I have a question to the CAO, probably to the Works Commissioner. I'd just like to have an update on back in early January, February, I had met with the resident, Mr. McLeod, and he and his neighbor offered to donate land to the town. And I know that staff was going to engage engineering firm to make a recommendation. I'd just like to have an update on that. I'd like to get back to the resident who's been calling.
So the same work needs to be done for 3 other streets as well. Smith Lane, South Street, and Lakeview Road. So Apple Hill drawings have been completed, I think, today. And then the engineers will take them over to the property owners to see if they're okay. So the drawings are just done today. It should be the next week or two that that's taken over. And then once the property owner signs off, then it'll be coming back to council. And then that work will be a budget discussion come the fall. So that's just, if you want more detail than that, I'll turn it over to the development officer. But that's where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Did he miss out Tambeck Road also? Was that planned on? Same idea though, signature, sign off.
Yeah, my understanding, unless things have changed, is that we still have a person who doesn't want to work with the town on that. Is there any change in that?
Yeah.
It's the same type of situation where that one's stalled.
Yeah, it's called quite a few years though, that's too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, yes.
Councillor Bellman, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so the stall one will not delay the ones that
No.
are approved.
No, the other 3 that I mentioned, Lakeview, South, and Smith, they're all proceeding. It's just a matter of getting sign off from the people that are going to be affected.
Thank you.
And then it'll be a budget.
Thank you, Councillor Bellman. I will move on to item 10, bylaws, there being none. Move on to 11, new business recommendations. 11A, grant applications. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield allocate Girl Guides of Canada, Debbie Childs McCluskey, $200. Westfield School, Louise Johnson, $295. All others will receive $289 each. Additionally, prior to funding, resident Jennifer Fox will be required to provide receipts as proof of purchase prior to funding being released. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
Second motion.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Before I open the floor to questions, I just want to highlight that the town miscellaneous grants are a total of $4,964 per year, and that's $1 per capita. We do it twice a year, so this year, at this point in time, there's $2,482 available, and we're pleased to be able to support community initiatives by passing these out to people that have applied. Do we have any questions on the motion?
Your worship, it might be nice to read off the other people that are receiving grants for the
Can we
community.
have that, John?
Yeah, just so, Your Worship, I can't find my table. So what we have is Girl Guides, Tiny Treasures, Grand Bay Home and School, Inglewood School, Mindy Cruz, that's for the grad banners, the Grand Bay Primary School, the Port City Minor Baseball Association, and Westfield School. and most of them came in above what we're allowed to distribute. Actually, I think all of them except for 2 came in over what we were able to distribute.
Thank you, John. We have any other questions or comments on the motion?
Just a quick comment, it's really nice to see all the schools taking advantage, and I think a lot of them had to do with recreational outdoor activities, so it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the requests were for outdoor activities that haven't been able to be held for quite some period of time. So it's nice to be able to help support those. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
I,
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11B, harassment policy. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the workplace harassment policy. I have a motion.
so moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can you speak to the item, please?
Yes, Your Worship. In reviewing the harassment policy, one of the gaps, it primarily addresses, if I harass an employee or one of the managers do, or guys in the works department harass one another. It doesn't account for what happens if a member of the public harasses staff. So we've moved to correct that, and that's primarily the reason that we're doing it. And then the other thing that I've added in the appendices is the procedures that are to be followed, forms that are to be filled out. Basically, there's a checklist to ensure that if there is an allegation of harassment, that it's thoroughly investigated, fairly investigated, and then communicated to everybody. Those are the 2 fundamental changes.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
I,
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. It's important that our staff have a safe space to work and thrive in. Thank you. Item 11C, solar array. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield accept the recommendation provided by Dillon Consulting for award of RFP number GBW-22-3754 solar array project to the Smart Energy Company for $468,000 plus HST.
I'd like to table this motion. It's over budget. And I'd like Dillon, the town, and Solarway to work together to see if we can make this happen. And look at that costing and what we have requested to be done. And I would like this done by the town staff and back to us by the May 24th meeting.
Thank you for that. So I guess we have to take into try and figure out why it is over budget by that amount. Is there any cost savings that?
There's a couple of items that are automatically $100,000 over, Your Worship. So work with them, and then we'll see if there's other cost savings that we find. I'd just like to recognize the gentleman from Smart Energy here. I'm sorry, I don't remember everybody's name. I know there's Jeff.
I'm Mark.
Joe. And so it's great that for a big project like this, we have a local company that puts Pam here for this, and we look forward to engaging with them to see what we can do to bring this on budget. It's 40%, Your Worship. It's not a small amount.
Yeah, 40% of it. No, understood. Okay. So is that enough direction? We're good.
Yeah. So what I'll be doing then, Your Worship, is you're directing us to work with Dillon and Smart Energy, what we can do to bring it on budget. And Council wants it back by May 24th, which gives us, gentlemen, that actually only gives us about 7-8 days, because we have to have everything done ahead of time for go to Council. So that gives us a bit of pressure to do it on a timely basis.
And thank you for joining us here this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Your Worship, we should also acknowledge that these are the gentlemen who have been putting the solar array panels into our lagoon, not in the lagoon, but around the lagoon. And David keeps saying about the great energy efficiency and the savings we're seeing. So this is a really important thing for us, especially with climate adaptation. And it's working together to make it happen.
Agreed, Councillor Day, looking for alternative energies is the way to the future, absolutely. So, thank you for that. I walk by the lagoon every day walking the dog, so I do see it fairly frequently.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. So, again, thank you very much for being here. Do you need anything else, or are we good to move on to the next item?
No, we're good over here, Your Worship.
Excellent. All right, we'll move on to 11D, Canada Day 10 Miler. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the use of Woolston Drive, River Valley Drive and Yaricus Road for 10 miler and 5K races, running on the sidewalks and shoulders of road, beginning at 7 o'clock a.m. at the River Valley Middle School on Canada Day, and ending around 12 p.m. at River Valley Middle School, utilizing support staff positioned at all intersections to ensure the safety of the runners, with notification to the RCMP, fire department, and ambulance to ensure continuity of emergency services. Do I have a motion?
I so move, Your Worship.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Balcom. I have a second. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
Just a comment, Your Worship, I've run this race many times over the past few years, and I know that I believe Councillor Lawrence has as well, and you have as well. It's a great event in our town, so I know it's, we all look forward to it, and it's great. It brings people from the running community all around Southern New Brunswick and further afield into the town. So it's a great event. We always seem to have, I don't want to curse it, but good weather. So it seems to be a good event. And I think Lily Coffin is here as well.
Oh, well, hello, Lily. Lily Coffin, you're one of the organizers of the race. I know your father, Alex. So it's welcome. We're glad to see you here. And should this motion pass, we'll be thrilled to have the event in our community once again. So, thank you for attending. We have any other questions or comments on the motion? I just want to echo Deputy Mayor Toole's comment that I'm very happy to see this event come back. It's been a long few years without it. I've done my share of running the event, some years more successfully than others. I've talked my children into running the event, some years more successfully than others. So it's a great family event, and it does bring people from all over the region. So I'm very happy to see this happening again. So if there are no other questions or comments on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lily. We appreciate you being here. Item 11E, appointment treasurer. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield appoint James Barrington as treasurer of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield per section 71, bracket 4, bracket, and 76, bracket 1, bracket of the Local Governance Act effective immediately. We have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Day. We have a second. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. John, you going to speak to the item?
Yes, our first CFO, family reasons had to leave. And I'm very happy to introduce James Barrington as the town's new CFO. And you know, it's been a good week working with James so far, and looking forward to continuing that relationship, Your Worship. And we will provide the council with appropriate financial information so we can make good decisions and stay on track.
Thank you, John. I want to take this moment to officially welcome James to council and to the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield. We're thrilled to have you here. Thank you very much.
James said he really likes the job a lot, so I was thinking maybe we're paying him too much, Your Worship.
I don't know, what do you think, James?
When it's pleased to be out.
That's good.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it, perfect answer. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. Item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the May 9th, 2022 bills for payment as presented in the amount for $167,704.25. I have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Bellman. Do we have any question or comments on the motion? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, we missed you last night.
Just one, number 45, the helmet for $2,700. I'm just wondering how many helmets that is? Is that just one?
Believe it or not, that's only 5 helmets. That's for
It's better
the
than
fire
one. I thought it was
department.
gonna be one.
No, Chief, would you mind just giving council an example of what the helmet is that they're buying for $500?
Sure. So we actually have two helmets in the fire department. One is kind of a, the basic off-the-shelf fire service helmet that goes to all members when they join. And as part of our recruitment and retention process, there's this helmet. There's not really a big price difference, only like $100, $150 difference between the two. But as firefighter moves up the ranks and becomes frontline firefighter, they'll go into one of these helmets, which are $500 or $475 for this last billing. And they're designed differently, so they actually have a different look to them than the more traditional one. And they're just better designed in that sense, and they're also more comfortable because they're actually balanced. So when you have them on your head, even if you want to mount a flashlight on the other side, you mount a flashlight, it tends to tilt because the helmet itself isn't quite as robust as these ones. These ones you can put a helmet or a flashlight on the side of it and you have no issues at all, and it's just more comfortable. I can't say it provides better protection because they all meet NFPA standards, which is what brings the price up in the first place for all of them. That's kind of the general part.
They also have some features.
Sorry.
They also have some features such as device inside that will cover their eyes, protect their eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
Yeah, no, I assume they were, I know they're necessary. I was just wondering how many that.
How many they were, yeah, and when you have to meet those standards, it's not, it's not an inexpensive.
But just for context, the rest of the bunker gear, I don't recall if it includes the boots or not, is $3,000 for the jacket and the pants. It's $3,000. How much are the boots?
Boots can range anywhere from $250 to $500.
But you have people in dangerous circumstances, either heat, fire, chemicals, or even human flesh.
Yeah, so proper gear is essential.
Quick question for that. How long do you last? Or are they warranty on, or a time date on it to last so long, or?
Minimum 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, do you have any, Councilor Bob?
Your Worship, I'd like to know a little bit more about the projects, the 5 different bills that we're paying for Dylan. I think it would be good for council to understand the diversity of the projects. We don't have in-house engineers, and they seem to be adding to the overall expenditures each month, and just like to have an idea of what the projects are. That would be items 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
Sure, Councillor, so just quickly, originally we were looking at purchasing aqua barriers to provide flood protection, flood mitigation at the Brundage Point River Center. Dylan did some work to help us understand where they should be positioned and how many we would need to be able to provide adequate protection. So that's the one bill. And then another one was installing a small salt shed over at the Current Works building on River Valley or near River Valley Drive. Then up on McLean Road, council approved engineering work on trickling filter plant up there. We have a small sewage system for a number of homes up there. So that's for that, and then we're expecting work to be done this year. Part of the work that they're doing is whether or not we can put a solar array up there to help offset electricity costs and greenhouse gas emissions. Bill 18 is not related to Works Department at all. Council's had a number of visits from Jennifer Brown, Dylan I'm sorry, lose my voice. Regarding the municipal plan and the zoning bylaws, so that's number 18 for over $900. And then finally, bill number 19. Every year we update the street. We update the street condition report. What types of conditions are those? That goes into our asset management and helps us prepare a report for council as to where is it most beneficial for the community and our tax dollars to invest in our roads. So that's where that money goes. Then also, Greg, our former CFO, was updating our tangible capital asset registry. And Dylan has information for that we need to access and share with us. Greg did a lot of work, much to the relief of James, to bring everything in-house now, and has it all sorted out. So that's a huge benefit, even though taxpayers won't see it. But for Bruce's planning, for our auditor and everything in between, it's an important work. Now, the other thing that we looked at is back in the mid-2000s, the Council of the Day did a couple of reports. One was, what would it cost to install a wastewater system in Westfield? Grand Bay has a wastewater system, and we just talked about the lagoon solar array. So what I wanted was an update on the Class D estimate, because one of the concerns the council has is, we only grew by 3 people last time. We haven't really had growth over the years, and it's been identified that one of the barriers to residential and economic growth in the community is wastewater, that we don't have a sewer system. So we looked at updating that, and that's been provided, and depending on how grants go and what council's priorities are, we may or may not be able to apply for grants, but we have accurate numbers now. The same thing with water. That's one of the barriers to growth, according to many businesses and residents, is that we don't have a proper water distribution system. So that was about $3,000, and then we decided to put a stop on that, Councillor, because the system that was agreed upon in the mid-2000s, 2007, 2008, that has changed due to government regulation, provincial regulations up on top there by, do you remember what lake that is? Lake Alba, because now that's been a protected area, and the province has expanded the protection around there. So now if we want water, we may be better off to partner with St. John. So so that's where some of that money is going. And I think that covers everything.
It certainly does. It's enlightening me. There's a lot of projects, and we take them for granted quite a bit, so thanks for summarizing this.
All right, you're welcome, Councillor. It's easy to rail against engineers.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. Do we have any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 13, consent agenda. 13A, letter, the chamber membership renewal. Item 13B, PAC minutes, April 4th meeting. And consent agenda. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agenda items for May 9th, 2022. Motion? Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 14, council reports. Start with Councillor Bailman.
On Broke Kids, so Broke Kids of applications have drastically increased into 2022 to 285. In 2021, there were 107 applications, so it really jumped up in applications. So. And fundraising dinner for Pro Kids will be November 17th at the Delta. So coming up in a week or also.
Okay, so what date was that, John?
November 17th.
November 17th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And my better half is helping out with a family of 4 arriving today from Ukraine. So she's helping on the board for the Ukraine. So.
Okay, in support of the
Yeah,
family.
the gift basket. Yeah. So.
Okay. And if someone wanted to buy tickets on that basket, what's the best way to do that?
What do you call our house? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So is there or just reach out on Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook.
Or?
So, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah. That's all.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Bellman. Councillor Bell?
Just one thing to report, Your Worship. Had a very interesting PAC meeting last Monday. definitely getting more and more interesting. Sometimes I wonder if we should be having them twice a month. I still have the positive feeling that we're going to become busier and busier, and that's a good predecessor for growth
That sounds good.
and construction. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you for your service on the committee, Councillor Malcolm. Councillor Day?
I've been working with MB Power and a few other people to pull together a report on project to lower efficiencies. And John and I are getting together this week to finalize it, and then we're going to be sending it to David and the lady from MB Power, who at the end of my meeting said, "Oh, I know Brittany," and I'm thinking, yes, all right, that's good. So they've been more than willing to help us create the start of energy efficiency days. So stay tuned.
Oh, that's great work. Thank you, Bev.
And no, John, I'm not looking for a whole lot of money.
Don't talk to me, talk to them.
Councillor McIntosh Lawrence?
I just have one thing, along with Deputy Mayor Toole. We had the pleasure of attending the cruise ship kickoff on April 29th. So it had been 912 days since the port had welcomed a cruise ship in. So they had a big kickoff, and we had the pleasure of attending that. So it was quite special.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Toole?
Your Worship, I guess the highlight would have been last week, the naming committee meeting, we had the final one of that whole process. So that was an excellent meeting and a great group, and it was a real pleasure to be involved in that process. And the other item was, again, I'm still on the standing committee, the Local Governance Reform Committee for UMND, Union Municipalities in Brunswick, and we just kind of get together every 2 weeks to discuss current issues and bring them forward, so that's been interesting. And then, of course, I had the cruise ship attendance with Councillor McIntosh, which was excellent. But one other quick thing, I think I just thought of this earlier, is we had a great meal from one of our local businesses for supper that I've also been enjoying the past 2 weeks, all the new restaurants either that are opening for the season or that have reopened or that have been adding new things to their menus. So we have 2 or 3 new businesses or new restaurants or reopening old restaurants that have come up. So it's been a pleasure and very full. So I think I've probably gone out 4 nights in the past 2 weeks, which is unusual. So just encourage everybody to get out and check them all out, because it's really nice to see crowds of full parking lots in town when you drive through.
I couldn't believe the one in with the ice cream. Everyone lined up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's a good sign. It's great to see the people in town supporting our local businesses. Yes?
I was just going to say, Your Worship, it's counterintuitive. You think that food places like these would follow greater economic development, but studies have shown that when we get our eastbound burgers and Hook and Paddle, I'm sorry, I forgot the one up by Flavors, what that one's name is, Off the Hook. When you get these types of things, they're actually almost a precursor of economic development. That's what studies have shown. It's counterintuitive, you expect them to follow. So this is very positive, both because it's a nice summer vibe, and 2, hopefully, there will be growth here.
Based on how busy I've seen both of those places recently, that's definitely a prediction that looks like it's going to come true.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you, everybody. We have item 15, business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, we'll move on to item 16, which is adjournment.
Sorry, you didn't do your
Find my report. Well, I guess one of the bigger things that I've done in the last couple of weeks is every month I meet with my regional colleagues in the Envision St. John office, and we follow an agenda. Where it's at Envision, it's generally based around economic development, but we also get into other topics, local governance reform, municipally designated highways, and anything like that. It's a safe place for us to discuss regional issues, talk things through, discover ways we can work together collaboratively. So it's a really great thing, and I have to say that the way that the regional mayors have been working together since we were all elected, I think is almost historic. We're in contact with each other almost on a weekly basis, and there's a real vibe of realizing that working together as a region, as opposed to cannibalizing each other for different things, is the way towards success for our region as a whole. So one of the reasons this month's meeting was notable was because our special guest was the Premier. So we had an opportunity to sit down with Premier Higgs and talk about different issues. The topic of the day, of course, was mostly economic development, but we also talked a lot about local governance reform, particularly the expanded mandates of the Regional Service Commission and how those might roll out, and what that's going to mean for the region. How Envision St. John is a model for basically the province in terms of economic development and tourism rollout, and the Premier sees that as a very successful model in the way of how things are going to go. We talked about things like regional transportation. We talked about amalgamation. So it was a pretty interesting session. Hearing what the people around the table had to say and what the Premier's vision is. And it was a great opportunity to have, the ear of the Premier and have him hear firsthand what's important to the people of Grand Bay-Westfield. So that would have been the number one thing that happened during the course of the last couple of weeks. So there's always all kinds of other things. There's signing checks, there's talking to people, there's going to meetings, things of that nature. But that opportunity really stood out to me. So we'll continue to meet with the regional mayors officially during our regional meeting. But there's I just want to assure everybody that there's a ton of work and collaboration going on behind the scenes, and we're all working very hard together to move the region forward. So there's my council report.
Sorry.
Thanks for reminding me. I tend to forget, so thank you. So now we can move on to item 16, adjournment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 7:47 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So,
Councillor Billmans, we have a second. Thank you, Councillor Day. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council.